3 weeks ago, I won $47 million. Yesterday, my own son called me a stupid old fool who belongs in a nursing home. My brother said I was pathetic. My daughter? She just went silent, too busy with her own problems to care. All because I asked them for $6,000 money I didn't even need. You see, I was testing them. And the results. The results broke something inside me that can never be fixed. Have you ever discovered someone's true colors when you needed them most? Share in the comments where you're watching from and tell us about a time your family let you down. Don't forget to subscribe for more shocking stories. My name is Tom Rodriguez. I am 61 years old, and I live alone in a small apartment in Denver's Highlands neighborhood. From my kitchen window, I can see the Rocky Mountains stretching across the horizon, their peaks dusted with early winter snow. It's beautiful, but beauty means nothing when you're drowning in loneliness. 6 months ago, my wife Maria died in a car accident on Interstate 25. A drunk driver ran a red light and took away the only person who ever truly loved me. Maria was everything, my anchor, my joy, my reason for getting up each morning. We'd been married 32 years, and suddenly I was adrift in a world that felt too big and too empty. The lottery ticket was an impulse buy. Every Friday for 20 years, Maria and I would stop at the corner store and buy 2 tickets with the same numbers our anniversary date, her birthday, my birthday. After she died, I kept buying those tickets. Not because I believed I'd win, but because it felt like keeping a promise to her memory. When those 6 numbers flashed on the television screen that cold February evening, I stared at the ticket in my trembling hands for what felt like hours. $47 million. After taxes, about $28 million. More money than I'd ever dreamed of having. But instead of joy, all I felt was a hollow ache in my chest. What good was all this money without Maria to share it with? What was the point of being rich when the person who mattered most was gone? I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, the winning ticket beside my cold cup of coffee. As the sun crept over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, something shifted inside me. The grief was still there, but alongside it grew something else. Something harder. My family had never been there when I truly needed them. When Maria was sick, when the medical bills piled up like mountains, when I was working double shifts just to keep us afloat, where were they then? My son Miguel was building his startup empire. My daughter Carmen was focused on her career. My brother Carlos always had his own problems to worry about. It was strangers who showed us kindness, neighbors who brought meals, church members who sat with Maria during her treatments. Not my own blood. Now I had more money than any of them could imagine. But they didn't know that. And maybe, just maybe, that gave me an opportunity. A chance to finally see who they really were when the stakes mattered. The thought grew stronger as I sat there in the early morning light, the winning ticket warm in my palm. What if I didn't tell them about the money? What if instead I told them I needed their help? What if I could strip away all their comfortable excuses and see their hearts laid bare? The idea was both terrifying and necessary. For too long I'd wondered if they loved me or just tolerated me. I'd made excuses for their absence, their indifference, their casual cruelty disguised as concern. I was about to discover who my family really was, and the truth would destroy everything I thought I knew about love. The plan formed in my mind like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. Over the next few days, I crafted the perfect story, one believable enough to test their hearts without raising suspicion. I would tell them I'd been scammed, that criminals had somehow gotten hold of Maria's life insurance information and drained the account through fake investment schemes. It happened to elderly people all the time, didn't it? The story had to be embarrassing enough that they'd believe I was too ashamed to go to the police, but desperate enough that I needed their help immediately. $6,000. That would be my ask. Not so much that it seemed impossible, but enough to matter. Enough to require sacrifice. Enough to separate those who loved me from those who merely tolerated my existence. I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, writing down everything I knew about my family's finances. Miguel's tech startup had just secured another round of funding. I'd seen him post about it on social media before I'd stopped checking those painful reminders of how little I featured in their lives. 6,000 would be nothing to him. Carmen taught 3rd grade, but her husband Paul was a successful orthopedic surgeon. They'd just bought a house in Cherry Hills Village, one of Denver's most expensive neighborhoods. 6,000 might sting, but it wouldn't break them. Carlos ran his own electrical contracting business. He'd always been good with his hands, even as a kid. Business was steady, and 6,000 represented maybe a week's worth of work for him. The math was simple. They all could afford to help me. The question was whether they would. I practiced the story in the mirror, letting my voice crack at the right moments. I'm so embarrassed, I would say. These people, they sounded so professional. They said they were investment advisors working with the insurance company. I thought I was being smart, trying to make Maria's money grow instead of just letting it sit there. The shame in my voice would be real, even if the story wasn't, because there was shame in having to test my own family like laboratory rats. Shame in suspecting that their love came with conditions and price tags. I made a list on the legal pad. Miguel first, then Carmen, then Carlos. I would call them in birth order, the way Maria used to line them up for family photos when they were small. Back when they still looked at me like I hung the moon instead of like I was an inconvenience they had to manage. The memories hit harder than I expected. Miguel at 7, begging me to teach him to ride a bike. Carmen at 5, falling asleep in my lap during bedtime stories. Carlos and me building a treehouse in the backyard of our old house, his small hands trying to hold the hammer steady. When had it all changed? When had I become someone they called out of obligation rather than love? My finger hovered over Miguel's number in my phone. This was it, the moment of truth. In the next hour, I would know whether my son, my firstborn, the child I'd taught to throw a baseball and drive a car, would stand by his father in his darkest hour, or if he'd find a reason to let me fall. The phone rang once, twice. Then Miguel's impatient voice cut through the silence. "Dad, this is unexpected. I'm in the middle of a board meeting. Can this wait?" I could hear voices in the background, the hum of a conference room. My son, the successful entrepreneur, too busy for his father even on a Tuesday afternoon. "Miguel, I need to talk to you about something serious. Something embarrassing." A pause. Then a sigh that said everything about how he viewed interruptions from his old man. "Okay, but make it quick. I've got investors waiting." I let my voice shake as I launched into the story I'd rehearsed. The fake investment advisors, Maria's insurance money. How professional they'd sounded, how convincing their credentials seemed. How they'd drained the account over several weeks while I thought I was being smart, trying to make the money grow. "I'm down to my last few $100s, son. The rent's due next week, and I need 6,000 to keep from losing the apartment. I'm so ashamed, Miguel. I should have known better." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Miguel's voice came back, but it wasn't the voice of a concerned son. It was cold, clinical, angry. "Dad, how could you be so stupid?" The words hit like a physical blow. Stupid. My own son had just called me stupid. Getting scammed at your age? This is exactly why you shouldn't be living alone anymore. You're clearly losing your mental sharpness. "Miguel, I just need—" "No, Dad, listen to me. This proves what I've been thinking for months. You're not capable of handling your own affairs anymore. Maybe it's time to consider assisted living." Assisted living? The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "There are some really nice places," he continued, his voice taking on that patronizing tone people use with children and invalids. "Structured environments where they handle your finances, your medications, your daily routine. You wouldn't have to worry about scammers, because you wouldn't have access to large amounts of money." "I don't want to live in a home, Miguel. I just need help this one time." "This one time?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Dad, you called me 2 years ago about your car breaking down. Last year it was the furnace. Now this. When does it end?" I remembered those calls differently. The car repair was $800 I couldn't afford on my pension. The furnace died in January, and I'd nearly frozen before I swallowed my pride and asked for help. Both times, Miguel had eventually helped, but not without making me feel like a burden. "You're 61, not 91, he continued, "but you're acting like you can't take care of yourself. Maybe you can't. Maybe Mom's death affected you more than we realized." The casual mention of Maria's death, like it was just another factor in his business analysis, made my chest tighten. "Miguel, please. I'm your father, and as your son, I'm telling you what you need to hear. You need professional care. You need someone to manage your money, so this doesn't happen again. I can't keep bailing you out every time you make a poor decision. So you won't help me? I'll help you find a good facility. Somewhere safe where you can't be taken advantage of. But throwing more money at your problems? No, Dad. That's not helping. That's enabling." The line went dead. My own son had just thrown me away like garbage. I sat staring at the phone, my hands trembling. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college tuition I'd worked double shifts to pay that boy had just told me I belonged in a nursing home because I was too stupid to live on my own. I sat staring at the dead phone, my heart shattered. But I wasn't done yet. Maybe Miguel had always been cold, but Carmen was different. Carmen was my little girl, the one who used to crawl into my lap for bedtime stories. Surely she would be different. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm but distracted. "Hi, Papa. How are you?" "Papa." She still called me Papa sometimes. Maybe there was hope here. "Carmen, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something serious." "Oh, no. Are you okay? Are you sick?" The concern in her voice gave me a flicker of hope. I launched into the same story, the scammers, Maria's insurance money, my shame and desperation. "I'm down to my last few $100s, mija. I need 6,000 to make the rent and keep from losing the apartment. I'm so ashamed." There was a pause, and I could hear children's voices in the background. "Oh, Papa, that's terrible. I can't believe people would do that to you. That's so cruel." Her voice was soft, sympathetic. This was the daughter I remembered. "I know it's a lot to ask," I continued, but I didn't know who else to turn to. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed subtly. Still gentle, but there was something else underneath. "Papa, you know I wish I could help. You know I do. But Paul and I are still paying off my master's degree loans. The payments are $600 a month, and we just bought the house." The excuses began flowing like water, finding the easiest path downhill. "And with the kids' activities, soccer, piano lessons, tutoring, everything is so expensive. We're stretched pretty thin right now." I remembered the photos she'd posted on Facebook. The new house in Cherry Hills Village, the family vacation to Hawaii, the designer handbags and expensive dinners. "Maybe in a few months, Papa, when my loans are more manageable. Or maybe you could talk to Uncle Carlos." A few months. When I'd be homeless by then, according to my story. "Carmen, I don't have a few months. The landlord wants the money next week." "Oh, Papa." Her voice was pained, but not pained enough to actually do anything. "Maybe you could talk to your landlord? Explain the situation? Most people are understanding." Most people are understanding. As if my daughter couldn't be bothered to understand her father's crisis. Or maybe there are social services that could help? Senior assistance programs? I could look into that for you. Social services. My daughter wanted to hand me off to strangers rather than help me herself. "I understand, mija," I said quietly. "You have your own responsibilities. I really am sorry, Papa. If things were different." Her voice trailed off, the sentence left hanging like a broken promise. "Of course. I love you, Carmen. I love you too, Papa. Call me if you find another solution, okay?" Another solution. As if her love came with the condition that I solve my own problems first. I hung up and sat in the growing darkness. My daughter had just politely abandoned me. She dressed it up in sweet words and reasonable excuses, but the result was the same as Miguel's cruelty. When I needed them most, they weren't there. Two down. One last call. My brother Carlos. Surely blood would mean something. My finger hovered over Carlos's number. My little brother. We'd grown up sharing a bedroom in our parents' cramped house, whispering secrets in the dark. I'd taught him to throw a curveball, helped him with his homework, stood up to bullies who picked on him for being smaller. If anyone would help me, it would be Carlos. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. I could hear the clatter of tools in the background, the whir of machinery. He was in his garage, working on some project. "Tom? What's up, hermano?" Hermano. Brother. The Spanish word our mother used to make us use when we fought as kids. "Carlos, I need to talk to you about something serious. Something embarrassing." I heard him set down whatever tool he'd been using. Uh-oh. What kind of embarrassing? I told him the story one more time, but it felt heavier now, weighted down by Miguel's cruelty and Carmen's polite indifference. The fake investment advisors. Maria's insurance money gone. $6,000 to keep my apartment. When I finished, there was silence. Then Carlos laughed. Not a sympathetic chuckle or a nervous laugh. A genuine, amused laugh. "Tom, you've always been too trusting, but this is just pathetic." Pathetic. The word hit me like a slap. Getting fooled like some confused old man. "You're 61, not 91. How do you fall for something like that?" "Carlos, what you need is to wake up. These scammers target people who aren't paying attention. People who are," he paused, searching for the right word, "people who are losing their edge. losing my edge. Like Miguel's comment about my mental sharpness. Maybe Miguel is right about you needing someone to manage your money. If you can't tell the difference between a real investment advisor and some criminal calling from a boiler room, maybe you shouldn't be handling your own finances. Miguel talked to you? He called me after you hung up on him. Said you were acting desperate, making poor decisions. He's worried about you, Tom. We all are. They'd been discussing me, analyzing my mental state like I was a problem to be solved. So you won't help me? Carlos sighed, the sound crackling through the phone. Look, hermano, I've got my own problems. Business has been slow. Maria's medical bills from when she was sick. Yeah, I still owe money from that. My truck needs new tires. Every excuse was a small betrayal. I'd helped him through his divorce, lent him money when his business was starting up, co-signed the loan for his first work truck. Besides, he continued, maybe this is a wake-up call. Maybe you need to face reality about your situation. Living alone in that apartment, trying to manage everything yourself, it's not working, is it? I've been managing fine. Have you? Because this doesn't sound fine. This sounds like someone who's in over his head. The garage sounds resumed in the background. He was already moving on, already dismissing me. You should listen to Miguel about the assisted living thing. There's no shame in admitting you need help. Better to be safe than sorry, right? Safe than sorry. As if I was a hazard to myself. I have to go, Tom. I've got a job to finish before dark. But seriously, think about what we're saying. We care about you, but we can't keep worrying every time you make a bad decision. The line went dead. 3 calls, 3 failures, 3 knives in my heart. My own family had abandoned me completely. Worse than abandoned, they'd convinced themselves it was for my own good. I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by silence and betrayal. The $47 million might as well have been 47 cents. All the money in the world couldn't buy what I'd just lost. Or maybe what I'd just discovered I never really had. I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by silence and betrayal. There was only one place left to go. One person who might still see me as human instead of a problem to be managed. St. Anthony of Padua Catholic Church sat on Federal Boulevard, its red brick facade weathered by decades of Colorado winters. I'd been volunteering there since Maria died, helping with food drives and visiting elderly parishioners. It gave me purpose when everything else felt meaningless. The heavy wooden doors creaked as I stepped inside. The familiar scent of incense and old wood wrapped around me like a blanket. Afternoon sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting rainbow patterns across empty pews. Tom? Padre Jose's voice echoed from the altar. I wasn't expecting you today. Padre Jose Martinez was 55, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd immigrated from Mexico 30 years ago and built this parish from nothing, serving families who worked construction jobs and cleaned office buildings, people who understood struggle. Padre, my voice cracked. I need someone to talk to. He set down the hymnal he'd been organizing and walked toward me, his footsteps soft on the worn carpet. Come, sit. We settled into the front pew, the same pew where Maria and I used to sit during Sunday Mass. The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Padre Jose had a gift for letting people find their words. I'm in trouble, I finally said. Financial trouble. I told him the story, the fake investment advisors, Maria's insurance money gone, the $6,000 I needed to keep my apartment. The lies flowed easier now, polished by repetition. But then something unexpected happened. The truth started bleeding through. I called my children, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I called my brother. They all think I should be in a nursing home. They think I'm losing my mind. Padre Jose's weathered hand found my shoulder. And how does that make you feel? Like I'm already dead. Like I died with Maria, and no one bothered to tell me. The words hung in the sacred air between us. I'd never said them out loud before, but they'd been living in my chest for months, growing heavier every day. Tom, you've been coming here for 6 months. You've helped feed dozens of families, visited people who had no one else. Does that sound like someone who's losing his mind? I shook my head, unable to speak. Family isn't always blood, he said quietly. Sometimes God gives us a different kind of family. People who see our hearts instead of our bank accounts. But I don't have a bank account anymore, I said, the lie feeling bitter on my tongue. Padre Jose was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Tom, would you trust me to help you? I nodded. I'm going to talk to the parish. We take care of our own here. $6,000, we can make that happen. Padre, I can't ask the congregation to... You're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference. He stood and placed both hands on my shoulders, looking directly into my eyes. You are not alone, Tom Rodriguez. You are not forgotten. And you are not crazy. For the first time in months, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt hope. Within days, something miraculous began to happen. Something that would restore my faith in humanity. What happened next still brings tears to my eyes. By Sunday morning, word had spread through the parish like wildfire. Not gossip Padre Jose was too discreet for that, but a quiet understanding that one of their own needed help. I arrived for Mass as usual, expecting nothing more than the familiar comfort of prayer and hymns. But as I walked down the aisle, something was different. People nodded at me with knowing smiles. Hands touched my shoulder as I passed. After the service, Mrs. Elena Vasquez approached me. She was 70 years old, a widow who cleaned office buildings at night to make ends meet. Her arthritic hands shook as she pressed a folded envelope into my palm. "It's not much, Mijo," she whispered in heavily accented English, "but it's from the heart." Inside was $50 and a note written in careful cursive. "For Tom, God sees your struggles. You are not alone. Elena, $50. From a woman who probably had less than I pretended to have. Before I could thank her properly, another envelope appeared. Then another. The Rodriguez family, no relation to me, despite sharing my name, had 3 young children and drove a car held together with duct tape and prayers. But there was their envelope, $100, and a note that said, "We know what it's like to need help. Pay it forward when you can." By Tuesday, Padre Jose called me to his office. "Tom, you need to see this." His desk was covered with envelopes, cash, and handwritten notes. Some contained $20, others $5. One envelope held only $3 in crumpled bills, but the note inside made my throat tight. From the Martinez children, "We saved our allowance. Hope it helps. Sophia, age 8, and Diego, age 6. How much?" I asked, though my voice barely worked. $6,437, Padre Jose said quietly. In 3 days, I stared at the money more than my fake crisis required and felt something break open in my chest. Not break apart, but break open, like a dam releasing water that had been held back too long. "There's more," Padre Jose continued. He handed me a manila folder thick with papers. "Job offers. 3 families want to hire you for handyman work. Mrs. Chen wants you to help her with her garden this spring. The Morales family needs someone to drive their grandfather to doctor appointments." I opened the folder with shaking hands. Page after page of people offering not just money, but connection, purpose, community. "Tom," Padre Jose said gently, "these people barely know you, but they see your heart. They see the man who helps serve meals every Thursday, who visits Mr. Gutierrez when he's lonely, who fixed Mrs. Patterson's leaky faucet without being asked." Maria's voice echoed in my memory, something she'd said during her illness. "There's still good in this world, Tom. You just have to know where to look." I'd been looking in all the wrong places. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the envelopes spread before me. Each one represented a choice, someone choosing kindness over indifference, generosity over selfishness, love over convenience. My own blood had abandoned me, but strangers had claimed me as family. The $47 million hidden in my accounts suddenly felt like a burden rather than a blessing. These people had given from their hearts, expecting nothing in return. They'd shown me what love actually looked like. That's when I knew what I had to do. It was time for the truth, time for justice, and time to show my real family exactly what they had lost. I picked up my phone and made 3 calls. My voice was steady now, cold as Denver winter air. "We need to talk. All of us. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock at Denver Diner on Colfax. Don't be late." Miguel tried to argue. "Dad, if this is about money again, just be there." Carmen's voice was worried. "Papa, are you okay? You sound different." "I'm fine. Better than I've been in months." Carlos was suspicious. "What's this about, Tom?" "You'll find out." The Denver Diner was perfect for what I had planned. Public enough that they couldn't make a scene, but private enough for truth-telling. I arrived early and chose a corner booth, my back to the wall like an old gunslinger preparing for his final showdown. They arrived within minutes of each other, as if they'd coordinated. Miguel, in his expensive suit, checking his phone. Carmen clutching her purse nervously. Carlos in his work clothes, smelling of motor oil and suspicion. "Dad," Miguel said, sliding into the booth across from me. "You look different." I did look different. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying the weight of their disappointment. I wasn't bending under the burden of their conditional love. "I have something to tell you," I began, my voice carrying across the table like a judge reading a verdict. "About the money I asked you for, about the scam, about everything." Carmen leaned forward. "Did you get help? Did you find the money?" "Oh, I found money. More than I needed." I pulled out my phone and showed them a banking app. Not the account with 47 million that would come later. This was a smaller account I'd set up, showing the $6,437 from the church community. The people at St. Anthony raised this for me in 3 days. 3 days. People who work minimum wage jobs, people who clean offices at night, people who save their allowances. I let that sink in. They gave because they thought I needed help. Miguel's brow furrowed. That's good, Dad. I'm glad someone could help. But here's the thing, I continued, my voice getting stronger. I didn't need their help. I never needed anyone's help. I pulled out a second phone, the one with access to my real accounts, the one showing $47 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Carmen's eyes went wide. Miguel's mouth fell open. Carlos just stared. $47 million, I said quietly. I won it 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before I called you begging for 6,000. What? Miguel's voice cracked. You've had this money the whole time? Every conversation, every plea. Every time you called me stupid, pathetic, senile, I had $47 million sitting in the bank. Carmen's face went pale. Papa, why would you? Because I wanted to know who you really were. I wanted to see if any of you loved me enough to help when you thought I had nothing. I leaned back in the booth. And now I know. The transformation was immediate and disgusting. Miguel's shock turned to calculation. Dad, this is incredible. We need to talk about investment strategies, tax shelters. We need to celebrate, Carmen interrupted, her voice suddenly bright. Papa, this is amazing. We could travel together, spend time. Carlos was more direct. Shit, Tom, why didn't you say something? We could have figured this out together. Family should stick together. Family. The word tasted like ash. Now you want to be family? I asked. When you thought I was broke and desperate, you wanted to put me in a nursing home. You called me stupid. You abandoned me. My voice rose slightly. But now that you know I have money, suddenly I'm worth your time? Dad, that's not fair, Miguel started. Fair? I laughed. But there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair. I pulled out the manila folder Padre Jose had given me, thick with donations and notes from the community. Mrs. Elena Vasquez, 70 years old, works nights cleaning offices. She gave me $50. $50 she probably needed for groceries. I opened one of the notes. The Martinez children, ages 6 and 8, gave me their allowance money. $3. I looked each of them in the eye. They gave because they thought I needed help. You refused because it was inconvenient. But Dad, Carmen tried, tears starting to form. If we had known. If you had known, you would have helped for the wrong reasons. They helped for the right ones. I stood up, pulling out my wallet, and placing a 20 on the table for the coffee I hadn't touched. I'm donating $5 million to establish the Maria Rodriguez Community Center. It will serve families like the ones who helped me, people who understand what love actually means. Miguel's face went red. You can't just, I can do whatever I want. It's my money. I looked at each of them one final time. The community gave me $6,000 when they thought I needed it. You gave me cruelty and abandonment. They showed me what family really means. I picked up my phones in folder, my movements deliberate and final. You failed the test. All of you, the people who barely knew me, showed more love than my own blood. I met each of their stares. This is goodbye. Forever. I walked out of that diner and left them sitting in their shock and regret. Through the window, I could see them arguing, gesturing frantically, probably planning how to fix this, how to get back into my good graces. But it was too late for that. I'd finally learned the difference between family and blood, and I'd chosen family. Standing in my new life, surrounded by the family I chose rather than the one I was born into, I see God's fingerprints everywhere. This betrayal story that nearly broke me became the foundation for something beautiful, a community center where real families are formed through love, not obligation. The lesson is crystal clear. Blood doesn't make family, character does. When people show you who they are in your darkest hour, believe them. The $47 million was just a tool God used to reveal hearts mine included. I learned that holding on to toxic relationships, even with family, prevents us from receiving the love we deserve. These kinds of grandpa stories happen more often than we'd like to admit. Elderly parents discovering their children's true motives when money or care is involved. But my betrayal story has a different ending because I chose to see God's hand in the pain. He was preparing me for a different kind of family, one built on genuine care rather than genetic connection. The people at St. Anthony didn't help me because they had to. They helped because they wanted to. That's the difference between obligation and love. Their generosity taught me that God often sends angels in the form of strangers who become family. Now I share my story, hoping it helps others recognize the difference between people who love you and people who use you. These grandpa stories need to be told because they remind us that it's never too late to start over with people who truly care. Has your family ever surprised you for better or worse? Share your story below. Sometimes our experiences can light the way for others walking similar paths. Please share this if you know someone who needs encouragement today.